Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we are doing something a little unusual for our format.
Yes, we are.
Usually we are dusting off Plato or wrestling with Kant, looking for the bedrock of human thought in the heavy hitters of philosophy. But today we are arguing that philosophy isn't just found in leather-bound treatises. Sometimes it's found in a crumbling illustrated magazine from over a century ago.
It is indeed. We are looking at a treatise on boyhood, if you will, a manual for living that was handed down to a generation on the brink of catastrophe.
The year is 1912. I really want you to sit with that date for a moment. It is a year that vibrates with a very specific frequency. You have the Titanic setting sail representing the absolute zenith of industrial hubris and its subsequent tragedy. You have these terrifying, fragile contraptions called airplanes buzzing over amazed crowds.
Right, and the telegraph has shrunk the world to the speed of a tapping finger. It is the calm before the storm. We are just 2 years out from the First World War.
But the people living in 1912 don't know that.
No, they don't. For them, the map of the world is painted in broad, confident imperial colors. There is an immense optimism, but underneath it, a vibrating tension, an obsession with being prepared.
And that brings us to our text for this deep dive. We are analyzing volume 27 of the Captain magazine, published in that fateful year 1912. Specifically, we are doing a close reading of 3 short stories by the incredibly prolific Percy F. Westerman.
Westerman is a name that might not appear on a standard philosophy syllabus, but for the boys and old boys demographic of the early 20th century, he was a titan. He wrote over 170 books. He was really the architect of a specific kind of moral universe.
We have 3 texts on the docket today: How Dymott Came to Derry, then Jack Devoros' Scoop, and finally The Powder Hulk.
On the surface, these are just adventure stories, ripping yarns.
But our mission today is to treat them as serious cultural artifacts. We want to unpack the archetypes of heroism, the ethical relationship with technology, and the stoic philosophy that defined a generation.
Exactly. We are looking for the virtue ethics of 1912. How was courage defined? What was the good life for an Edwardian teenager? And how do these stories function as a rehearsal for the trenches?
Let's open the first text, How Dymott Came to Derry. Interestingly, Westerman doesn't start in his contemporary 1912. He takes his readers back in time.
He retreats to 1689, the Siege of London Derry. This is a foundational event in British military history, but we really need to look at it through the lens of the story. It represents a Hobbesian state of nature scenario, a city cut off starving, where the normal rules of civilization are breaking down completely.
The setting is truly apocalyptic. The text describes a city where the garrison is eating rats. They are boiling down hides, literally old leather to make soup. There is pestilence everywhere. It is a grim, visceral picture of human suffering.
And the philosophical tension comes from proximity. Salvation is right there. Captain Leake is sitting in the River Foyle with the frigate Dartmouth loaded with food, but he cannot act. He is paralyzed by a physical barrier. The boom. In narrative terms, the boom is the antagonist. It's a massive barrier constructed by French engineers to block the river. It represents the ultimate obstacle between suffering and relief.
And our protagonist is Jock Dymott. He is 19 years old.
The Westerman sweet spot.
Right, exactly. Old enough to have competence, but young enough to have what the Victorians called pluck.
He is an acting third mate. His mission is effectively a courier run. He needs to swim from the ship to the city to tell the governor that help is coming.
Let's unpack the preparation scene, because I think this is where the treatise on the body comes in. Dymott doesn't just heroically leap into the water. It's a whole process.
It's extremely tactical. He strips naked, he smears himself from head to toe in tallow-rendered animal fat, and then covers that in soot.
Why the tallow specifically?
Insulation. This is Northern Ireland. The River Foyle is freezing. If he jumped in without that layer of fat, he would succumb to hypothermia almost immediately. The soot is for camouflage.
But think about the sensory experience there. He is transforming himself into something primal.
Yes, he is becoming a seal or a shadow.
It's a complete rejection of the uniform and the trappings of rank. To be a hero, he has to become a greasy, blackened thing. He enters the water and swims upriver, dodging the French batteries. And then he encounters the boom. The description here is absolutely terrifying.
It's a real Scylla and Charybdis moment. The boom is described as fir balks, these huge timber beams lashed together with tarred ropes and cables. But the true horror is the iron-shod stakes.
Right, these are spikes driven into the riverbed to rip the bottom out of ships. Dymott tries to climb over the boom, but the current is too strong. It just sucks him down.
So he has to go under. This is the descent into the underworld, basically. He dives beneath this massive entanglement of wood and iron in pitch darkness. He's groping blindly. He feels the iron stakes grazing his skin. He actually hits his head on barnacles.
And the text notes that he has barely 6 inches of clearance.
That detail is crucial. 6 inches between the riverbed stakes and the floating boom. It is a moment of pure, suffocating claustrophobia. It suggests that the path to salvation is incredibly narrow.
It requires a submission to the environment. He has to let the current take him through the gap. He can't fight it.
Exactly. He pops up on the other side gasping for air, but he's not safe. And this brings us to a really interesting clash of technologies in the story.
The encounter with the French skiff. Dymott is spotted. An officer and 2 rowers see this black head bobbing in the water. The officer pulls a pistol, a flintlock.
Now, for the reader, in 1912, a pistol is a lethal, reliable machine. But this is 1689.
Right. The officer pulls the trigger, the hammer snaps, sparks fly, but nothing.
A literal flash in the pan. The weapon fails.
Why is this important to the philosophy of the text?
It highlights the fragility of man-made power in this earlier era. The gun is a symbol of authority, but it fails against the elements, the damp mist, the worn flint. Dymott is saved by the inefficiency of the past.
And because the gun fails, the whole thing devolves into a brawl. The bowman swings an oar at Dymott's head.
And Dymott uses the physics of the water to his advantage. He ducks, grabs the oar, and uses leverage to capsize the boat.
It's a triumph of the body over the tool.
Yes. The French relied on the gun and the boat. Dymott relied on his muscles and the water.
So he makes it to the quay. He is hauled before Governor Baker, and he delivers the letter. And the description of the letter as a limp rag really grounds this whole ordeal.
It's a material object that has suffered with him.
Yeah.
It's not a pristine decree, it's a sodden scrap of hope.
The message is delivered. Relief is coming. And this sets up the historical climax on July 28th. The ships Mountjoy Phoenix and Dartmouth attack the boom.
This is where Westerman integrates real history. The Mountjoy hits the boom with 300 tons of momentum. The boom shatters. The obstacle is broken. But then physics again, the ship recoils and gets stuck in the mud.
It's a moment of incredibly high tension. But Captain Leake on the Dartmouth fires a broadside. One broadside was enough. The city is saved.
But I want to focus on the ending regarding Dymott's character. He returns to his ship. He has performed a superhuman feat. He saved a starving city. He reports to Captain Leake. And what is the dialogue?
Leake says, "Back again, Mr. Dymott." Good.
Good.
That's it.
That is the absolute essence of the 1912 ethos. The stiff upper lip. We often parody this today as emotional constipation, but in the context of this treatise, it's a profound philosophical stance.
It is stoicism in its purest form.
Right. You do not seek validation. You do not seek glory. You do your duty. The highest praise is a simple acknowledgement that you function correctly.
It's an understated virtue. The act speaks for itself, so any extra words would only diminish it.
Precisely.
Now let's step into our time machine. We are leaving the muskets and tallow of 1689. We are jumping to the modern day of the text, which is 1912. The story is Jack Devoros' scoop.
The tonal shift is jarring. We move from a world of wood and water to a world of telegraphs and aeroplanes. The setting is Morocco during the French colonial wars against the Berbers and Moors.
Our hero is Jack Devoros, another 18-year-old. He works for the intelligence newspaper, and he is paired with a foil.
Arnold B. Craddock.
Let's unpack Craddock, because he feels like a very specific archetype.
He is the new world crashing into the old world. He's an American veteran war correspondent. He's described as gaunt with leather skin. He rides a magnificent Arab horse, and he constantly calls Jack Sonny. He represents professional cynicism and the hustle.
And Jack.
Jack is the British amateur. He rides a sorry-looking donkey. He's polite, inexperienced, but deeply eager. It's a classic dialectic of experience versus enthusiasm.
They ride out to see the battle. And here Westerman gives us a lesson on the fog of war.
This is a crucial distinction from the Dymott story. In 1689, combat was face-to-face. In 1912, it is mediated by technology. They hear the zip of bullets, they see the smoke, but they don't see the enemy.
Because it is smokeless powder, which means death arrives invisibly. They get too close and French flank collapses. Craddock's horse is shot.
And notice Craddock's reaction to his horse dying. $120 gone bust. He quantifies the loss in purely monetary terms. It's a very capitalist reaction to tragedy.
They are captured. They are bound in the desert. And the text is explicit about the stakes. A slow and fearful death.
In the colonial literature of this period, falling into the hands of the indigenous forces was framed as the ultimate horror. It represented a loss of self, a descent into what they viewed as savagery, so they were just waiting to die.
And then the sound. A long-drawn whir.
The literal deus ex machina, the monoplane.
We have to contextualize this for you, the listener. In 1912, seeing an airplane in Morocco would be like seeing an alien spacecraft.
It is the sublime. It represents the absolute dominance of Western technology over the desert environment. It is a triumph of engineering descending from the sky.
But the warfare aspect is hilariously primitive. The pilot leans out and drops a bomb by hand.
It's that boy engineer aesthetic again.
Yeah.
It's not a button push. It's a manual, physical act of dropping a black sphere. It explodes, scatters the enemy forces, and the pilot lands.
Now we reach the central ethical dilemma of the story. The lifeboat problem.
The plane is a single-seater. The pilot says he can take one passenger, not two.
So Jack and Craddock have to decide who lives and who likely dies.
Craddock the cynic immediately reverts to a kind of chivalry. He says Jack should go because he's younger. Jack refuses. He argues that Craddock has more value, or perhaps simply that he cannot leave a comrade.
So they turn to chance. The French lieutenant pulls out a cigarette. He breaks it in half.
This is a ritual, the draw. The lieutenant states the rules. The whole cigarette means safety.
So if you pick the whole one, you get on the plane. If you pick the broken one, you stay in the desert.
Jack draws. He looks at his hand. It is the broken cigarette.
He loses.
He loses, and his reaction is immediate. That's done it, Craddock. Off you go.
There is no hesitation at all, no bargaining.
That is the sporting spirit applied to life and death. You play the game. You accept the result. To complain would be a greater failure than dying.
Craddock accepts the result too. He says personal feelings must stand aside, but he promises to file Jack's copy. Even in this moment, the professional duty, the scoop, remains paramount.
Craddock flies away. Jack is left alone. And this triggers the action sequence, the chase.
Jack finds a riderless horse and takes off across the desert, but he is pursued by Camel's heiries.
Westerman engages in a comparative analysis of locomotion here. Its biology is engineering. He explains that on the soft sand, the horse is mechanically disadvantaged. Its hooves sink. It flounders.
Whereas the camels
have wide, padded feet. They float over the sand. It's a terrifying image of the environment turning against the hero. The technology of the horse is failing.
The horse eventually dies. Jack is thrown. He is down to his revolver. He checks the drum. He has just a few shots left.
And here we see the ultimate stoicism. He decides to save the last bullet for himself.
He looks at his watch. He calculates he has another half a minute.
He's bringing order to chaos. He is timing his own death. It is a way of retaining agency in a hopeless situation. He's not panicking, he is scheduling.
But just as he prepares to fire the Moors' retreat, the French cavalry arrives.
Saved by the bell, or rather saved by the squadron.
Jack is rescued and taken back to Fez. Now, in a modern story, this is where the hero would collapse, seek therapy, or, just sleep for a week. What does Jack Devoros do?
He goes straight to the telegraph office.
He is blind to the world with exhaustion, but he writes the dispatch.
This is the apotheosis of the work ethic. The experience of the battle is entirely meaningless unless it is codified and transmitted. He writes the story and hands it to the operator just before the window closes.
And then the irony. Craddock walks in.
Craddock, who had the miracle of the plane ride. He should have been there hours ago. But the fog of war, or perhaps just the friction of travel, delayed him. He arrives too late. The sensor is closed.
He finds Jack asleep in the press room. Jack has scooped him.
It is the victory of pluck over luck. Craddock had the technological advantage with the plane, but Jack had the grit. He endured the desert, the chase, the horse, and the exhaustion.
It reinforces the core message. Technology is great, but character is decisive.
Precisely. The tool is only as good as the hand that wields it.
Which brings us to our third and final text, the Powder Hulk. We are leaving the foreign wars and coming home.
To England. Sanboro Creek. This is a domestic setting, but the stakes are just as high. It's essentially a thriller.
We have two 18-year-olds, Harry Armitage and Jack Standish, on a yacht called the Spray, and they are moored next to the Buccaneer.
The Buccaneer is a powder hulk, an old warship converted into a floating magazine. The text claims it holds 1,000 tons of cordite.
Let's discuss cordite for a second.
It's a smokeless propellant. Extremely volatile. Basically, these boys are sleeping next to a sleeping dragon. If it goes up the creek, the town, everything is completely erased.
The atmosphere is incredibly heavy. It's a dark night, a storm is brewing, and the boys' riding lamp keeps blowing out.
That malfunctioning lamp is a fantastic narrative device. It forces them to be awake. It forces them to be vigilant.
They hear muffled oars, they see red flashes and hear reports from the hulk. They realize something is very wrong.
Now, the rational self-preservation instinct would be to weigh anchor and sail away as fast as possible. But the Westerman hero moves toward danger. They row to the hulk.
They find the police boat attached to it, and inside, the two policemen are bound and wounded in the bottom of the boat.
This establishes the threat level. The authorities have fallen. Law and order have been suspended. It is entirely up to the civilians and the boys to restore it.
The boys realize there are 5 villains on board trying to break into the magazine. They need to fight back. But their weapon.
Ah, the weapon. They have an antique percussion-capped Colt revolver.
The text spends a full paragraph detailing how remarkably obsolete this thing is.
It takes 5 minutes to load. You have to pour the powder around the ball, place a cap, and it frequently misfires.
It's the Dymott paradox all over again.
It is. The heroes are armed with the past. The villains are armed with the present automatic pistols. It raises the stakes significantly. Every shot must be calculated. You cannot just spray and pray with a percussion revolver.
The boys lay siege to the deck. The villains are trapped below, but they need light. They need to signal the shore.
And here comes the Westerman swim again. Jack Standish strips naked and lowers himself into the freezing water and swims to a light boat to get rockets and lanterns.
Why does the text return to this specific image of the naked swimmer?
I think it's fundamental to his philosophy. Civilization is a layer of clothes. To perform a truly heroic act, you must strip away the artifices of society and return to the biological reality. The hero is vulnerable flesh against the elements. It validates the strength of the boy underneath the school uniform.
Jack gets the rockets. He fires them. The deck is bathed in blue light. The villains panic.
They rush the deck, but their escape boat is gone. The boys cast it adrift. Checkmate.
But the villains refuse to surrender. The last man standing makes a totally nihilistic choice.
He grabs a burning fuse. He runs to the open hatch of the hold. If he can't have the loot, he will just destroy the world.
Sergeant Smith, the wounded policeman, takes the shot.
He hits the villain, but gravity is a cruel mistress. The villain falls forward. He plunges down the hatch, holding the burning fuse.
This is the moment of absolute existential dread. The fuse is in the cordite.
The boys are standing on the bomb. They know they are dead.
They react with frantic activity. They grab the pumps. They desperately pump water into the hold.
They're trying to fight a volcano with a garden hose. It's an act of utter desperation.
Yeah.
They wait for the end. They wait for the white light.
And nothing.
Silence. The smoke clears, the fuse burned out, or the water hit it.
And then comes the revelation, the twist that reframes the entire story.
The police go down to inspect the bodies, and they discover something about the hulk. It was empty.
Empty.
The Admiralty had moved the cordite a week prior. The Buccaneer was a hollow shell.
This is a profound narrative choice. The villains died for nothing. The policeman was shot for nothing. The boys risked their lives for air.
It forces us to ask a deeply philosophical question. What constitutes heroism? Is heroism defined by the actual stakes or by the perceived stakes?
Right. If you run into a burning building to save a baby, but it turns out to be a doll, were you brave?
Westerman seems to say yes. The virtue lies in the will to act. The boys believed they were saving the town. Their courage was authentic, even if the danger was, in a material sense, absent.
It's a fascinating, almost postmodern twist for 1912. It suggests a certain absurdity to the grand adventure.
Or perhaps it's a reassurance. It says that sometimes the things we fear most, the 1,000 tons of cordite, are just phantoms, but we must treat them as real to prove our worth.
So we have traversed 3 stories. We've seen the endurance of Dymott, the professional grit of Devoros, and the accidental bravery of the Powder Hulk boys.
We've essentially built a profile of the captain hero.
Let's synthesize this. What are the pillars of this philosophy?
First and foremost, competence.
The boy engineer.
Exactly. Dymott knows the tides. Devoros knows telegraphy and writing. The Standish boys know sailing and rocketry. Bravery without skill is just suicide. The text demands that its heroes know how the physical world works. Repression. The suppression of the self. Dymott's good, Jack's off you go. Panic is an indulgence. Fear is a biological reaction that must be governed completely by the will.
And third,
Tactility. The hero must touch the world, Grease, water, sand, cold iron. You cannot be a hero from a distance. You have to get your hands dirty.
It's a compelling, if rigorous, worldview.
It was a worldview designed to build an empire, and ultimately a worldview that walked into the machine guns of the Psalm.
That is the haunting legacy of these texts.
Now, as is our tradition here on Talk Treatises, we like to take the themes of the text and push them into the realm of the absurd. It's time for thought experiments.
Disclaimer for you, the listener. These are for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do not swim in frozen rivers covered in lard.
Experiment number 1, the placebo hero.
Lay it on me.
Imagine a scenario based on the Powder Hulk. You are a superhero. You spend your entire career stopping doomsday devices. You defuse bombs. You stop asteroids. You are universally loved. On your deathbed, it is revealed to you that every single threat was a hoax. The government staged them to keep the population united and to give them a hero figure. You were never in danger. The bombs were props.
No, that's cruel.
The question is, did you live a virtuous life? Were you brave? Or were you just an actor in a play you didn't know you were in?
Deontologically, I'd say yes. You acted with the intent to save. Your will was good.
But consequentially, you achieved nothing. You stopped 0 explosions because there were 0 explosions.
I think the 1912 ethos would say you were a hero. Because you demonstrated the qualities of a hero, the external reality is secondary to internal character.
Experiment number 2, the algorithmic cigarette.
Based on Jack Devoros' Scoop.
We have the lifeboat scenario, 2 people, 1 seat. In the story, they use a random number generator, the broken cigarette, to decide fate decides.
Yeah.
Now imagine they had an app. The app analyzes their social utility. It calculates that Jack is younger and has more potential years of life, but Craddock has more current connections and dependence. The app spits out a result. Craddock stays.
Ooh.
Would Jack accept the app's decision as easily as he accepted the cigarette?
I don't think so. The cigarette feels like God's will or fate. The app feels like a judgment on your worth as a human being.
Exactly. The cigarette is impartial chaos. The app is a calculated insult. The heroes of this text can accept bad luck, but I doubt they would accept being told they are statistically less valuable.
That distinction between chance and calculation is absolutely vital.
Final experiment. The paradox of the boom.
From Dymott.
Dymott swims under the boom. He survives because he is small enough to fit through the gap. If he had been stronger, broader, a greater physical specimen, he might have gotten stuck and drowned.
So his weakness was actually his strength.
The question is, in a world of increasing technological barriers, booms, is it better to be the great man who tries to smash it like the ship Mountjoy that got stuck, or the small man who adapts and slips through the cracks?
In 1912, they loved the great man. They loved the ship. But Dymott suggests that the flexible, adaptable survivor is the one who actually delivers the message.
Perhaps the ultimate hero isn't the one who breaks the world, but the one who flows like water through it.
A Taoist reading of a 1912 boys magazine. I love it.
We find philosophy everywhere, my friend.
In all 3 stories, the heroes succeed not just because they are brave, but because they are technically competent. They know the tides, the currents, the telegraph codes, and the mechanics of boats. In today's world of automated convenience, have we lost that hands-on relationship with our environment that defined this kind of hero? And does the empty Hulk ending suggest a subtle cynicism about the stakes of adventure that we don't usually attribute to this genre? Something for you to ponder.
Keep your upper lip stiff and your powder dry.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive on Talk Treatises. We'll see you next time.